Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidy, Swanee and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, here we are. Good to see you both.
Great to see you.
All right, so for our listeners, there hasn't been a great deal of time between us. There's been a bit of a wee break. For those of us who don't listen to us all the time, Swanee and I are going under the knife separately this week. Swanee for her nasal issues and mine for a hip replacement.
Boob job, tummy tuck. Boob job, tummy tuck.
Can you get done with?
Brazilian butt lift. I tell you, I'd like to have them done if I wasn't so scared. But yeah, no, unfortunately, I'm having a three. Oh, there's three sort of tangents: a polypectomy, a bilateral sinus something, and I don't know, some other sinusy thing. All nasal stuff.
Very complex.
Yeah. And you, Schmidy?
What we're hoping for at the end of all of that is that Swanee can drink wine with the rest of us and not be all nasally. That's really all
that's what we're doing it for.
That's right.
100%.
So it doesn't have to be trial by wine, spelled WHINE, is it? For me, it can be trial by wine.
I was thinking it more that, it's a business expense and probably we should pay for it because you can actually be in trial by wine.
Genius.
I, on the other hand, am having a full right hip replacement. So we're recording another one, and I will, at the top of this episode, say I am definitely drinking another bottle of Delotite's Pinot Gris because it's delicious, and I'm already a bottle in. What about you boys? What are you drinking?
Well, we weren't quite sure how today was going to go, so we finished off the Halden from last episode, and then we did find a halfer from...
Oh, open bottle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a bit oxidised, but...
From Friday, but we might tip it out and just move on to something else. We're not really sure yet. We'd like to not drink anything through this episode, but it depends on what you deliver.
That's not likely, is it? You'll drink.
Yeah, it's like when I
Trust
say
me,
I'd like to not drink through this meeting at work, and then there I am at the end of it.
And Swanee, what about you? Still on the same Pellegrino?
Yeah, still on the water. I know it's a bit dull, but
you need to calm down. You need to calm down.
You are just need
out
to
of
control yourself. Yeah, that's right. All right. So who are we? I'm Schmidy.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are
Trial
by
Wine. Oh, beautifully done. Okay, cool. So there's no preamble because we are back to back. So I'm going to go straight into the next story, or the current story. I will admit that I did try to research this, but there's not much on it beyond the original article, unfortunately. And so everything I tried to do just sent me back to the OG. So I'm literally just going to go down the path of reading the original story, which is Grouse. I think this might drop end of September, so it's not ready for October, but it's as in Halloween.
Like a grand final episode kind of thing.
No, I was thinking more Halloween. It's a bit spooky. This is a spooky story. Okay.
It's making me nightmares. I'm so scared of this.
No, it won't give you nightmares. There's no well, in my mind it's very menacing, and it's nothing like Slender Man, it's nothing like other things we've talked about before, but it's still very menacing. So I'm going to talk about a story which is it's called The Watcher. Do either of you know this story?
Well, I don't know. Is it someone who makes watches?
No, it's not a watchmaker.
Is it a bird watcher?
No.
I think there might be something along the lines of this on Foxtel or Netflix or something. Yeah,
I believe they are bringing a story out about this on Netflix very soon.
Right.
But
is it the What You Doing?
No, it's not. But to Wooey's point, I have heard this story for a long time, and I am fascinated by it. It is awful, and it's funny. Well, it's not funny.
You have such a morbid sense of humour.
And she giggles.
I literally piss myself every time I hear it.
It's funny if you're not the victim of the story, but there's a part of it you go, oh my God, it's uncomfortable. So I'm going to get into it. So the original story came out in 2018 and it's from thecut.com.
Well said.
And it was called The Haunting of 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. The house I'm going to talk about is I can't remember what they're called. I'll probably come on to it. A Dutch something or other. Basically, remember Amityville? This is not the Amityville
I do.
story.
Yes.
The type of building, the architecture.
But the house, architecturally, this is like Amityville. And I had images and stuff, and I deleted it because I didn't think I thought it was Amityville's house, and I thought, oh, someone's just put that in there. And then I realized, no, it's a Dutch blah blah, and that is the actual style of the house. Okay, so I'll get right in there. So a family bought their dream house, but according to the creepy letters they started to get, they weren't the only ones interested in it.
Does that mean they bought it, they moved in, and then they started getting creepy letters? Or they got creepy letters in their old house?
No, they purchased it, they didn't move in, but they started to get letters after they were the owners. So this is by Reeves Weedman from The Cut. Okay, and this is the OG article about it, which went viral. Oh, Carla's already doing her big...
No.
big, I'm freaked out by this. And by the way, when you buy a house, you don't want to have this experience.
Oh, God.
One night in June 2014, Derek Broaduss had just finished an evening of painting at his new home in Westfield, New Jersey, when he went outside to check the mail. Derek and his wife Maria had closed on the six-bedroom house. Oh, it's a beautiful house, by the way. It's beautiful.
God, what did you do with the 6-bedroom house?
Well, yeah. Well, like they traded up.
Clean it all the time.
Not exactly.
All the time,
like
constantly.
What?
Oh, I'm
Nail
sorry.
the doors shut.
I'm sorry. Person with a 6-bedroom house is about to tell us what you do with it.
That's what I said. Clean it. That's what I do with it all the time. Clean it. It's a bloody nightmare.
This is a bloody nightmare. You might feel happier about yours soon.
I feel like you're using the context bloody nightmare in different ways.
This is a bloody nightmare. Well said, Schmidy.
I think you'll find that
cleaning the 6-bedroom is okay. Okay.
I see your bloody nightmare and I raise you a real bloody nightmare.
Calmeth your farmeth is all I'm going to say. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So Derek goes out to check the mail. Derek and his wife Maria had closed on a 6-bedroom house at 657 Boulevard 3 days earlier and were doing some renovations before they moved in. Not unusual. So there wasn't much in the mail except for a few bills and a white card-shaped envelope. It was
card-shaped envelope?
Card-shaped envelope.
What other shape do they have?
Anyway.
You could have like a big business size envelope, A4. Let's talk about all the size envelopes you could have.
They weren't talking
I thought you worked in advertising and marketing. I thought
it wasn't card sized, it was card shaped. Like they're all card shaped, surely. They're just different sizes.
I think what Swanee's saying is that it wasn't a DL and it wasn't an A3.
I would like birthday card. Because a DL could be called a card. This is a joke already.
Okay. There's an envelope and there's a card in it.
Right.
It was addressed in thick, clunky handwriting to the new owner. And the typed note inside began warmly. Dearest new neighbour at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighbourhood.
That's nice.
Yeah, isn't it?
Should have ended it there.
And perhaps that would have been best. For the Broadusses, buying 657 Boulevard had fulfilled a dream. Maria was raised in Westfield, and the house was a few blocks from her childhood home. Derek grew up working class in Maine and then moved his way up the ladder at an insurance company in Manhattan to become a senior vice president with a salary large enough to afford the $1.3 million house in 2014.
What year is this?
2014.
Right. Yeah. God, if only they were that cheap nowadays.
The Broadusses had bought 657 Boulevard just after Derek celebrated his 40th birthday. And their 3 kids were already debating on which of the house's fireplaces Santa Claus would use.
Oh.
I know, isn't that sweet? But as Derek kept reading the letter from his new neighbour, it took a turn, and not a good one. How did you end up here? The writer asked.
We bought it?
Did yeah.
Not smart.
Realestate.com. Did 657 Boulevard call you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming.
What was its first coming?
We don't know.
Don't come at me. 657 Boulevard.
Don't come at me, you fucking card.
Especially not a second time.
Arsehole. Mm-hmm.
Card writing arsehole.
My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s.
What?
It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. The author's reconnaissance had apparently...
This reminds me of some movie my kids were too scared to watch, where they were in the walls, and it was a kids' movie.
I feel like I'm too scared to watch it.
Do you know what the movie I'm talking? It's The Clock in the Wall. It's something in the.
No, that's not it.
What's that called?
But no. However, Wu, who said there's a Netflix drama on this, is right. That is the story of this. Yeah.
In the Animal Kingdom, there was money in the wall.
No, there's no money.
Not that.
There's nothing in the walls.
No. I'm just thinking of something like really sinister. There's like a kids thing. It seems so sinister.
I know, it sounds sinister, and it sounds like someone's dead bodies in there. But no, there's nothing in the walls. Okay.
Who put the writing on the walls?
Spoiler alert, listeners. There's nothing in the walls, right?
Not even insulation.
I'm thinking of a movie called The House with a Clock in the Wall. It was what a terrible title. But anyway, that's what my kids were too scared to watch.
That sounds scary.
Anyway, go. That was the first image that came to mind. Yep.
So the author's reconnaissance had apparently begun. The letter identified the Broaduss's Honda minivan, and it wasn't a Nissan Cube.
Can you start that sentence again? I'm so confused.
Sorry. The letter identified the Broaduss's Honda minivan as well as the workers renovating the home, because what had happened, they bought the house.
I don't understand that sentence. Am I too drunk? I think I am.
What had happened is they bought the house, right? And, you got, what do you call it? Settlement, anyway.
Yeah, no, but the Honda minivan.
They pulled up into their own drive. That's their car.
Oh, right.
The Broadusses had a Honda minivan. They had come to their own new home.
Right.
They also had some contractors in because they wanted to do it up before they moved in, right?
Yeah.
Which is not unreasonable for people who
I'm
buy
okay
a house.
with that. Particularly with stuff in the walls.
Yeah. Well, we
need
don't
to get rid
know
of.
However, the watcher says, I see that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you could destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make it. And I literally, this is a letter, right? So they wrote tisk, tisk, tisk.
I love it. Like, that's going to mess with people's heads.
That's scary.
Anyway. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. Earlier in the week, Derek and Maria had gone to the house and chatted with their new neighbours with their children, who were 5, 8 and 10 years old. They ran around the backyard with several kids from the neighbourhood. The letter writer seemed to have observed this. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted. And then they said, are there more on the way?
So it's quite a disturbing letter if you've just moved into a new home.
It's not cool.
So I don't know how you get over that.
Being stalked already.
So then the next bit is, do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested?
What?
Better for me.
What?
Was your old house too small for the growing family, or was it greed to bring your children? Once I know their names, I will call them and draw them to me.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
The envelope had no return address.
Oddly.
Funny that.
Who am I? The person wrote. There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I'm in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I'm in one.
There's
Look out.
Sorry, there's like 8 cars that drive past our house every day. We'd have a fair crack at guessing who it was.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be throwing your lemons at them.
Yes,
your lemon butter.
Yeah. 7 of them tooted us and waved because they know we're drinking wine in the front yard.
That leaves just one.
Yeah, that's
Who's
right.
your watcher?
Pretty bloody obvious.
And they would have said, Clarky, look out any of the many windows at 657 Boulevard at the people who stroll by each day. Maybe
None.
I am one.
Nobody strolls by.
Maybe you're just one of my
day.
neighbours who's a fucking nut job.
Yeah,
Anyway.
correct.
The letter concluded with a suggestion that this message would not be the last. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin.
Oh.
That's really, really, really cruel. Carla, this is something you would do. But only to punish someone in trial by wine
maybe.
world, not in real life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's got me written all over.
Oh, yeah. It's a psychological nut punch.
Okay, so welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin. Followed by a signature typed in cursive font, The Watcher. And that's why this story is called The Watcher.
The Watcher.
Okay?
I think he gave a little bit too much. I think I would have made it slightly shorter. I think he started rambling a bit about the driving past and shit. It's like, yeah, that's pretty obvious, mate.
I feel
I
like
think he was sort of...
Oh, no.
I think you overdid it a little bit, if I'm honest.
See, this is where we should learn from you.
Yes.
Yeah, we take a leap out of your
Sometimes
book.
saying less is saying more. That's what I
Correct.
said.
Would you have welcomed them to the
Less is
neighbourhood?
more. Yeah, I would have welcomed them. I would have
Hello.
cake?
given them some sort of. I would have given them a more gentle nod to the fact that I had been aware of some things. But I think he was a little bit overzealous in some of his. I know. It's like yeah. You could just
Yeah,
be
you're
my
giving
neighbour. At that
yourself
point, I'd be
away.
like, you say that cranky old lady vibes. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
who's trying to be scary.
So the problem was that this was received at after 10 p.m. and Derek shut himself because he was
Oh.
alone.
Hang on a minute.
That
It was
the,
received.
That's the problem.
At 10
He
o'clock.
shut himself.
How does he know it was received after 10 p.m.?
No,
He
got it.
picked it out of the thing
He
after
picked it
10
out of the
Oh,
mailbox
right,
after 10
not-
p.m.
Yeah, right.
And then he's like,
Sorry.
oh my God, what the fuck? When I say he shut himself, that wasn't literal.
That wasn't really the problem. Oh
That's
no!
right. But he ran around the house turning off the lights so no one could see inside. And then he called the police, which is what a normal person would do.
Correct.
And an officer came to the house, read the letter and said,
Mate, it's a prank.
no, sorry. I paused because I thought, did I write this? And no, apparently the policeman said, what the fuck is this?
Brilliant policing. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I literally thought, did I editorialize here? But no. He then asked Derek if he had enemies and recommended moving a piece of construction equipment from the back porch just in case a watcher tried to toss it through a window. So
What is a watcher? Is it a thing?
The watcher is the person, that's what they've named themselves. So the person...
Oh, okay. So he wasn't saying that watcher is a word that you describe as certain people who do certain things.
He signed off
if this
the card
person watched.
as the
Okay, right.
watcher,
Okay.
right?
We've got
Yeah,
way
yeah, I
better
got that.
words for those
A voyeur.
people.
Derek rushed back to his wife and kids, as you would, who were living at their old house somewhere else in Westfield. That night, Derek and Maria wrote an email to John and Andrea Woods, who are Andrea
The previous
Woods.
owners.
Yeah, the previous owners.
Yeah.
People sold it to them to say, have they any idea who the watcher might be or why he or she had written? I
Well
asked
played.
the Woods
Yes.
because apparently in that letter they said, I asked the Woods to bring me young blood, and it looks like they listened.
Oh.
Oh.
That was good of them.
Andrea Woods replied the next morning, a few days before moving out. The Woodses had also received a letter from the watcher. The note had been odd, she said. and made similar mention of the Watcher's family observing the house over time. But Andrea said she and her husband had never received...
Didn't give a shit because they were already leaving.
They're already out.
And it's your problem. Later.
Watch your way, asshole.
Thanks. We'll let the next people know.
No.
Sorry,
Schmidy. To be fair, they'd never received anything like it in the 23 years. 23 years
they
lived
there.
in the house.
Is there proof of that?
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
No, there is. They lived there for 23 years. There'd been no issue, no big deal. And then some rando sent this note and they were like, whatever, rando. And they chucked it out. They threw the letter away without much thought. The next day, the Woodses went with Maria to the people who had sold the house to them, went with Maria to the police station where Detective Leonard Lugo told her not to tell anyone about the letters, including her new neighbours, most of whom she had never met, and of her are now all suspects. As to your point, like they're looking at it, right? Can I get out of buying this house now?
Yeah, there's a real joy you get from buying a home that you love and moving into it, and to get a letter like that would just destroy all.
When's my cooling off period happen here?
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, so the Broaduss spent the coming weeks on high alert. Derek cancelled a work trip, and whenever Maria took the kids to their new house, she would yell their names if they wandered into a corner of the yard. So they were really paranoid,
on high
right?
Alert, yeah.
Get back here! When Derek gave a tour of the renovation to a couple on the block, he froze when the wife said, "It'll be nice to have some young blood in our neighbourhood." As you would. Broaduss's general contractor arrived one morning to find that a heavy sign he'd hammered into the front yard had been ripped out overnight.
What did the sign say?
Fuck you, Watcher.
Fuck you, Watcher. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Doing it for the family.
What sign do you hammer into new house?
Maybe new work.
It's probably their company, like who's doing our work, the company
right.
name.
Yeah. I've seen it lots where people advertise their work while they're working on a property.
Right.
So that's all that would have been. But it got ripped out. So
That's
someone
a
was
shame.
like not having it. Yeah. 2 weeks after the letter arrived, Maria stopped by the house to look at some paint samples and check the mail. She recognised the thick black lettering on a card-shaped envelope and called the police.
Maybe stick like a camera on the house, like a little to watch letterbox. Oh, they do.
They do.
I bet. Yeah.
Good idea, though.
Yeah.
I was going to nail another
Good
sign
call,
into
Slade.
the yard.
I said, fuck off, Watcher.
Not sure if you.
I'll do it again.
The first time.
This is
I said, comma.
Yeah, that's right. This is going to go on for a long time.
Exclamation point.
Yeah.
2 weeks after the letter arrived, Maria stopped by the house to look at some paint samples and check the mail. She recognised the thick black lettering on a card-shaped envelope and called the police. "Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard," the Watcher wrote. "The workers have been busy, and I've been watching you unload your carfuls, how dare you, of personal belongings."
I think it should be called Cars Full, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but it's American, so carfuls.
Yeah. Car fools. What up, fools?
How dare you, age of fools, of your own belongings. How dare you move into your own home, you motherfuckers. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time, they will. This time, the Watcher had addressed Derek and Maria directly, misspelling their names as Mr. and Mrs. Broaduss. Had the Watcher been close enough to hear one of the Broaduss' contractors addressing them? The Watcher boasted of having learned a lot about the family in the preceding weeks, especially about their children. It was so creepy. The letter identified the Broaduss' 3 kids by birth order and by their nicknames. The ones Maria had been yelling, "Eric! I'm just saying that because my nephew, God love him.
I thought that was your copy.
Well, exactly. So my nephew grew up in Glenroy, and there was a cockatoo next door, and the cockatoo, after a while, started to go, "Eric! I'm not sure that's what's happening here. I am pleased to know your names now, and the name of the young blood that you have brought to me," it said.
That's
You
just
certainly
gross.
say their names off. I know, You certainly say their names often. The letter asked about one child in particular, whom the writer had seen using an easel inside an enclosed porch. Is she the artist in the family? The letter continued. 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It's positively moist, as Paul would say.
I thought that's what the letter really said. I was like, that's gold. I totally didn't write that.
Sorry, that's editorializing on my behalf.
Some would call it rising damp, but others just go with moist.
It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house.
Oh.
Have you found all of the secrets it holds? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I was them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream.
Is it more disturbing hearing this sort of stuff that hasn't yet happened, or is it worse hearing when it...
I love Swanny's face. It's like, what?
Oh, what the fuck?
Will they sleep in the attic? Or will you all sleep on the second floor?
We'll all sleep in one bloody room is what we'll be doing.
Yeah. And it won't be at 657 Boulevard.
Yeah.
With a fully loaded Uzi.
Jesus.
Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better.
Who would do this? Like,
all about a house.
Oh.
All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher and have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession.
This sounds like the bloke that lived in the flats behind us.
Sounds
at
like
Brunswick.
bullshit to me. I'd be like, at this point, I'm like, oh, you're everything.
It's a real estate agent trying to drum
It's
up some
he's got
cash.
a very broad job description, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, oh, what else you do? Covered every room, covered every, it's like, how much can I scare someone? I think I've done it all. What else you got to say? Or she?
And now you are too. Broaduss family. Misspelled is the point there. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard. And now it has brought you to me. Happy moving in day. You know I'll be watching.
You really read this like you wrote it.
Derek and Maria stopped bringing their kids to the house because they're not idiots.
Yeah.
They were no longer sure when or if they would move in. Several weeks later, a third letter arrived. Where have you gone to? Sounds very English. When I lived in Frome, everyone would be like,
where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from? Cotton Eye Joe. Hey?
Where are that to then? And I'd be like, no one speaks like that in this day and age. Why are you all, Pirates of Penzance?
Yeah,
and they'd be like, where are that to then? I'm like, Anyway, maybe this person was from Bristol originally. Where have you gone to?
Where did you go?
Where'd you come to? Cotton Eye Joe. 657 Boulevard is missing you. Many Westville residents compare their town to Maybury, who is apparently amazing, like TV amazing, right? The Andy Griffith Show was the idyllic setting for it. The kind of place where new neighbour might greet you with a welcoming smile and a note and a pie, but not, I'm going to come and terrify you.
What's in the walls?
In a card-sized envelope.
Young blood. Ugh.
Westfield is 45 minutes, from New York, and a bit too slow for singles, meaning most of the residents are largely families, right? At that time, Bloomberg ranked Westfield the 99th richest city in America, but only the 18th wealthiest in New Jersey. So it's, Karens live there is what I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
And in 2014, when the watcher struck, the website Neighborhood Scout named it the country's 30th safest town.
As in before or after?
Around approximately the same time, probably
Right.
before.
Let's go before. Yeah.
But the 30th safest town in how many towns in America?
You're asking the wrong person.
The most pressing of late issue for the locals at that point in time, according to residents, was the temporary closure of Trader Joe's after a roof collapse and the rampant scourge of unconstitutional policing, by which they mean the police were really aggressive about enforcing the local parking restrictions.
What?
Basically,
I didn't see that coming.
This is a town where the worst thing happens is the police are booking you for parking longer than you should be, right? So, literally nothing happening here.
Well, they should spend more time focusing on people who are spending too much time watching others.
One activity all locals recognise as treacherous is trying to buy a house, however. There's a lot of money and a lot of ego, one resident who requested
treacherous?
Yeah. Buying a house apparently turns out to be a very dangerous exercise at this point in time.
This is a really safe place if buying a house is a dangerous exercise.
There's a lot of money and a lot of ego, one resident who requested anonymity before discussing Westfield real estate told me. I've seen bidding wars where friends lost $300,000. The Broaduss' house was on the boulevard, it's beautiful, by the way, I've got to say. Beautiful. Carla, you and I would love to live there.
What, we wouldn't?
You would too, but
Too
Carla
many
and I have
people.
aspirations. Yeah, you wouldn't like it. Aspirations.
Did you just slag me off for
ourselves.
not having aspirations?
No, I didn't. I feel like you've already reached them. The point is, I feel like you're already there. No, I really
I had to
think
mute myself because I nearly...
You've got a fucking farm. You've got the most
You need to get
place.
some aspiration.
Yeah, I know, right?
You need to dream a little, boy.
Far
I
out.
aspire to their life, not the other way around, is the point I was making. Anyway, I've seen bidding wars where friends lost $300,000. The Broaduss' house was on the boulevard, a wide tree-lined street with some of the most desirable houses in town. As the watcher had noted, the boulevard used to be the street to live on. So this is a place where, in the olden days, everyone was like, this is the place. This is where Clarky and Swanee and I all aspire.
Did you just say in the olden days?
The person who was telling the story said watcher was like, this place was the place to be. So it's where
But it's only 100 years old, isn't it?
110.
Yeah, that's
built
not the
in
olden days.
1905. Built in 1905. This 657 Boulevard was perhaps the grandest home on the block. And when the Woodses put it on the market, they had received a lot of offers above their asking price, and that let basically the Broadusses initially suspected that the watcher might be someone upset over losing their house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
But the Woodses said one interested buyer had backed out after a bad medical diagnosis, while another had found somewhere else. So there was no evidence from the Woodses' perspective that the people who had been trying to buy it were bid out, right?
There was no close second kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, and Andrea Woods proposed another theory. Would the mention of the contractor trucks and your children suggest that it was someone in the neighbourhood?
Can I
nasty neighbour.
Can I just interject for a sec? Because
Please
you're saying Woodses, but I'm not sure if it should be Woods.
Woodses?
Or Woodses.
Just say the Woods family.
But it definitely shouldn't be Woodses. I'm just trying to help.
It's a Woodses. You're right.
Okay.
As I said earlier, listeners, I've had quite a bit to drink before I start this. So it's a Woodses. Oh, fuck, I'm not re-recording.
Edit that bit out, though. I just wanted to say, maybe from this point on, let's go with Woodses.
The Woodses.
Yeah.
The Woodses. Okay. The letters did indicate proximity. They'd been processed in Kearney,
So they were posted, they weren't hand-delivered?
No, they were sent through the post.
I had a feeling that they were hand-delivered.
That's
Yeah,
what
Because
I'm
when you were
thinking
saying
too.
the way they were dressed in blocky letters, I just thought they were hand-delivered. Right. That's why I
No,
said
they were-
about the camera. That was my thinking.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
I didn't
No,
realise
they're
they'd
a
been...
processing key near the U.S. Postal Service's distribution center in northern New Jersey. The first was postmarked on June 4 before the sale was public. The Woodses...
Before the sale was public.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
The Woodses, not Woodses, had never put up an even for sale sign. Interesting.
So can I just interject now for a real sec? So there is
Please do.
a real estate agent where we live who is renowned for doing dodgy
And
stuff.
they're called the Woodses.
Well, let's call
Go
them
ahead.
let's call them the Woodses because they and we bought this place from somebody who was selling it at the same time as the Woodses, where they said it was under contract and therefore we couldn't have a look at it. So they were doing dodgy stuff just to try to stop.
Was that to try to tell you that there wasn't a pool in the back room?
No, although that
Like literally a swimming pool in the back room?
yeah, no, there wasn't that. But
Does Swanee know about that?
No.
No.
Swanee,
There's this pool in
I-
our back room.
there was literally a swimming pool. A swimming pool.
Just
Someone
out there.
built
It's out
an
there.
enormous, let's
Blow
call
up?
it extension /
No.
lean-to
yeah.
over
6
the top
foot
of
deep.
it, and then filled it, but not to the top. We'll just fill it to about a foot and a half.
We literally have a sunken lounge room in a kidney shape.
In our back room.
Like it is so shit. But anyway.
It's crazy. Anyway, what were you saying about your dodgy real estate?
Well, no, just this
realtor?
stuff. Yeah. No, so because there's a couple of instances that we know of whereby he isn't genuinely selling places and actually trying to get his family and friends involved in real estate rather than selling it on behalf of the person. So I was just thinking the watcher could actually be somebody who, because they know so much about
To
the
move
property
them
going
out,
on
yeah.
sale, we'll get the commission, then we'll make them sell again, but at a lower rate, and then we'll buy it then.
Because so far there's nothing that I've heard that I couldn't have found out through somebody else.
If you're an
Like
estate
whether it be
agent,
through
you
a
know
con, an estate, I could,
all of it.
who are the kids, who are the information. Yeah, there's a number of different avenues that you could go down this point that you could say it doesn't have to be a ghost. It could be a or, you know, not a ghost, but do you know what I mean? Or
It's someone
an evil something.
close.
Yeah,
It's just a spooky fucker somewhere. Yeah.
Mm.
So the renovations were mostly interior.
can I just
And-
interrupt? I feel like I may have said
Please
something
do.
stupid there. I don't think that a ghost would really use a typewriter to a word processor to do a letter. I just meant like an other, you know, another being, whatever, something that's not human. That's what I meant.
I'm so
Apologise.
disappointed you don't
Apologise.
believe that.
A ghost going, oh,
You've
I'm going to have
changed.
to. I'm going to type this up. I can't write it. I'm going to have to type this up. It's the only
Yeah.
way to do it. I want it to look professional. I want it to look very menacing.
The watcher had to communicate to the writer to make the letters and then give them to the poster who would put them in the letterbox.
This is an enigma wrapped in a riddle, and then whatever the expression is.
Yeah.
Blah blah.
And then wrapped in bacon and put in the oven with some beautiful stuffing in the middle. Nom, 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 nom,
Called
nom.
pigs in puzzles in blankets.
This is my second mystery story.
You're doing that
Puzzles
cracker.
and enigmas in blankets.
45 minutes in the oven on 180. Amazing.
Enigmas in blankets.
Oh, I've got a sore jaw now.
The watcher.
Watcher. Just get the hell out of your mother.
Latest watcher. It's come to say, Mum,
Shush. Okay.
shut the door, shut your own doors.
Shut up instead. Thank
No,
you.
shut your doors and shut your own doors and shush. Mummy's working.
Oh, fucking your reaction.
It's the watcher.
It's the bacon. I'm about to be wrapped in bacon.
For our listeners, one of
Oh.
Swanee's kids came in to interrupt her and tell her to
Be
shush.
quiet.
And gave her a fright, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
So good, right? I'm good.
Breathe. Just breathe.
Okay, so
It's in the walls.
the contractors who came along to do the work was mostly internal, right? So all the fuss about noise or whatever, the jackhammering in the basement, whatever, the detective shows up. They walk him around the house. They show him the easel on the porch that was hidden by vegetation. So it becomes even more weird that someone's looking at this kid because the kid would have been hidden. All of the work they're doing in the house is contained within the house, so it shouldn't be so upsetting. So a few days after the first letter, Maria and Derek went to a barbecue across the street, welcoming them and another homeowner. Oh fuck!
A what?
A few. Shut up.
A homo, nah. A homo, nah.
Stop.
A humo, nah.
They the only gays in the street.
A few days after the first letter, Maria and Derek. Get it out of your systems.
Right.
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Right. A few days after the first letter, Maria and Derek went to a barbecue across the street, welcoming them and another homeowner to the block. The Broadusses hadn't told anyone about the watcher, as the police instructed, and found themselves scanning the party for
100%,
clues
yes.
while keeping tabs on the kids who were running guilelessly through a crowd that made up much of the suspect pool. We kept screaming at them to stay close. People must have thought we were crazy, and I kind of
Yeah.
get that would have happened. You're like, stay here, Johnny, and they're like,
I would
"No,
totally
calm
have said,
down."
calm down.
Couldn't they be sent to the grandparents or
Grandma,
something like
that's
that?
what I
I wouldn't
reckon.
have.
Don't
I wouldn't
take
have
it.
had the kids within 10,000.
I'm with you. I wouldn't have taken them either.
No way.
At
that's-
one point, Derek was chatting with John Schmidt, who is not related to me,
Good to
who
know.
lived 2 doors down.
Caroline's dad.
When
John
Schmidt
Schmidt.
told him about the Langfords who lived between them. Peggy Langford was in her 90s, and several of her children, all in their 60s, lived with her. And
That's normal.
that sounds weird, except that I'm 48, and my sister's 57, and we live with my mother, whose name ends with Schmidt too.
I
So
rest
I
my
don't think
case.
that's not actually that
John
weird.
is actually related.
The family was a bit odd, just like us, because we're all Schmidts together.
We're all in this
No,
Schmidt
sorry.
together.
Sorry, John Schmidt, who's not even the Langfords, said they're harmless. He described one of the younger Langfords, Michael, who didn't work and had a beard like Ernest Hemingway, and this is one for you, Carla, as a kind of Boo Radley character.
Oh.
And I say that because, Clarky, you always reject all literary references.
I've heard of Boo Radley, but I was going to say, did he write a song or something? But I couldn't. I was thinking, was that? I think there is actually a band called Boo Radley, or
It probably is.
I think there is. That's
To
why I
Kill
know
a
it.
Mockingbird.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have got that.
No, I wouldn't have got
connection.
that either.
No.
It's
I
a
think
literary reference.
There's a band called the Boo Radleys. I think I'm going to Google it
I'm
now.
sure.
You are right. There is, I think. There is. I
who
think.
are probably taking that name from
Definitely taking that name from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, and Boo Radley was a kind of
Boo Radley.
albino type, very pale character, not a bad person, but a bit odd in the area.
So they were a UK Britpop band, and their song was "Wake Up Boo."
Okay.
That was imagining
All
that
right.
they haven't got their name.
So
Did
anyway,
they know that'd
at
be a
this
one-hit
point-
wonder or something?
Genius. Yeah, I know. The other one was "Wake Up Radley," but that wasn't so popular.
Anyway, so at this point, Derek thought the case was solved, right? He's like, "Oh, there's some widows in the street."
freak
Okay,
show.
Oh, it
got
must
it.
be them. It's got to be the weirdos.
It's
not
the
that-
Schmidts who live with Mum.
It's never the normal
I know the
person.
Langford. I know they were the Langfords. Whatever you said, but I'm just joking.
The Langford's house was right next door, next to the easel on the porch, so it made sense that they could have seen the
Right.
child, right?
Oh, great!
The family lived there since the 60s, When the watcher's father, the letter said, had begun observing 657 Boulevard. So it did make
A lot of
sense.
circumstantial
Yeah.
evidence, but yeah, I'm with him almost.
Correct. Richard Langford, the family patriarch, had died 12 years earlier, and the current watcher claimed to have been on the job for the better part of 2 decades. So we now have a maybe not moment.
On the job, on the tools.
When the Broadusses told Lugo, who's the detective, about the family, he said he already knew about them. I know about them. They're the local weirdos. Anyway, and a week before the first letter arrived, he brought Michael Langford to the police headquarters for an interview. So Michael's the son, right? Michael denied knowing anything about the letters, but the Broadusses say that Lugo told them that the narrative of what he said matched things mentioned in the letters. This isn't CSI Westfield, Lugo told the Broadusses.
I'm out then.
When the wife is dead, it's the husband. So basically the detective is saying this is probably what's happened.
Oh yeah, go with the obvious is what the detective is saying, right?
Occam's razor moment. But there isn't much hard evidence, and after a few days, the police chief told the Broadusses that, short of an admission, there isn't much the department can go on. And that's true.
Makes sense.
This is someone who threatened my kids. This is Derek talking. And the police are saying probably nothing's going to happen. Probably isn't good enough for me.
Also makes sense.
After the second letter, Derek told the cops that if they didn't take care of the situation, they would have a different kind of case on their hands.
Oh.
That's a threat.
This person attacked my family, and where I'm from, if you do that, you get your ass beat. No one got their ass beat. It's all good. Frustrated, the Broadusses began their own investigation. Derek became especially obsessed. He set up webcams in 657 Boulevard and spent nights crouched in the dark, watching to see if anyone was watching the house at close range. Maria thought I was crazy, he told me recently at a coffee shop in Manhattan. He covered a table with documents.
If I wasn't reading it, I wouldn't have known what you just said.
Maria thought I was crazy.
Crazy?
He told me recently. Crazy!
Crazy.
He told me recently at a coffee shop in Manhattan where he covered a table with documents relating to the case, including copies of the letters which he and his wife had shared with only a few family and friend members, right? He showed me a map displaying...
You say family and friend members. I'm sorry, darling. I know it's a challenge.
Maria thought I was crazy, he told me recently at a coffee shop in Manhattan. And now, Swanee, would you like to continue the story?
Sure. Whilst he was having this meeting in Manhattan where he had all of the copies of the letters which they'd sent and they'd only shared with a few family and friends, he showed him a map displaying where each of the 657 neighbours had moved in. Langfords were the only ones since the 60s, though, with overlays marking possible sightlines for the easel and a circle for approximate range of earshot to estimate who might have heard Maria yelling the kids' names. Only a few homes fit both criteria.
I love the approximate range of earshot circle that they've written on a map because, like, my sister's deaf, so it'd literally just be a dot. But then, it just depends on your own hearing. And also, when we lived near the zoo, if the wind was blowing the right way, we could hear the lions.
From our backyard,
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Depends on the way the wind blows. I agree with that too here. The Broadusses also turned to several experts. They employed a private investigator who staked out the neighbourhood and ran background checks on the Langfords, but didn't find anything noteworthy. Derek reached out to a former FBI agent who served as an inspiration for Clarice Starling in The Silence of the Lambs. I think they're just name dropping there.
Why is that? Because she got something thrown at her, or because
it was a woman who worked at the FBI? They happen to be on a high school board of trustees together, and they also hired Robert.
Is that relevant?
Lenahan, sorry?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
Irrelevant.
They got Robert Letterman. They got David Letterman.
This is Robert Lenahan. Sorry, my mistake. Another former FBI agent to conduct a threat assessment. Lenahan recognised several old-fashioned ticks in the letters that pointed to an older writer. The envelope was addressed to M/M Broaduss. The salutations included the day's weather, warm and humid, sunny and cool for a summer day, and the sentences had double spaces between them. The letters had a certain literary panache, which suggested a voracious reader and a surprising lack of profanity, given the level of anger which Lenihan thought meant a less macho writer. Maybe, he wondered, the Watcher had seen The Watcher, starring Keanu
Oh.
Reeves as a serial killer who stalks a detective trying to catch him. Over to you, Clarky.
I just before Clarky goes on with that, I did typewriting at school, and we were always taught to have
Double
double
spacing.
spaces after.
That's an old, but they don't think they do it anymore. Is that right?
And now they don't. No, they don't.
Yeah.
And everyone's always taking my spaces out, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
I was talking
this
to
is how I learned
someone
to do it.
who was
Yeah.
saying, "Can you believe that people still do double spaces after their
Full stop?
sentences?" I'm like, "What do you mean? I still do that."
I do too.
Correct,
Yeah.
because that's what we were taught to do.
But
the
spell
Watcher
correct
might
or whatever.
be. Yeah, they have one space because we've become Americanized. But when I was a young lady at the age of 16, 17, it was double spaces ahoy.
Also known as an old lady at the age of 16, 17, because as we recall, you are Benjamin Button, but a female version of.
Am I? Okay.
I think so, because you were very old when you were young. Remember, you had all these interests that others may not.
Yeah, I wasn't normal.
No,
That's
Schmidy.
Well, but I love that about you. Don't get me wrong. I don't want normal. No. I'm a bit shocked about the fact that the lack of profanity, given the level of anger, which Lenihan thought meant a less macho writer. Like, do only macho people use profanity?
Yeah, no, I find that bullshit because you can be very, very.
I rest my case.
Precisely.
I think you can be very angry, and you can write a very
Pointed email.
Yeah, pointed and expressive missive / email or whatever without having to swear. I agree.
When I'm really angry and not emotional, I don't waste words on
Much less
swear
likely
words.
to swear.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
right.
just
Yeah.
cut shit like it's fucking chainsaw. Anyway,
Correct.
that's another story.
And that's the Watcher. So basically, you and I could be the Watcher right now. Okay, moving on.
Lenihan didn't think the Watcher was likely to act on the threats, but the letters had enough typos and errors to imply a certain erraticism. The first letter was dated...
or just a lack of education.
The first letter was dated Tuesday, June 4th, but the day was a Wednesday. There was also a seething anger directed at the wealthy in particular. The Watcher was upset by new money moving into town. Are you one of those Hoboken transplant? Oh my God, I've been there. Hoboken transplants. You are in Westfield. Do you know where that is? So Hoboken is just across the river from Manhattan. So if you go from Manhattan across to New Jersey, Hoboken, yeah. And it has become totally gentrified though. So I think it was, that they call it bridging tunnel, where if you come through from the other side into Manhattan, you're not as cool and rich and whatever else as people who live in Manhattan Island are. But Hoboken is, I think it's actually quite cool now.
Sounds like every place we've ever lived.
Mm.
We always go there when it's not popular and then have to leave because it becomes popular.
So they go and they get another letter and it says, the house is crying from all the pain it is going through. You have changed it and made it so fancy. You are stealing its history. It cries the past and what used to be in the time when I roamed its halls. The 1960s were a good time for 657 Boulevard, when I ran from room to room imagining the life with the rich occupants there. The house was full of life and young blood. Then it got old and so did my father. But he kept watching until the day he died. And now I watch and wait for the day when the young blood will be mine again. Ooh, that was it.
That's gross.
That person was rich. So I don't understand that. Because if he's got a problem with people with money, they're old money. That's old money, maybe.
Yeah, not new money.
Old money, yeah. Lenihan recommended looking into former housekeepers or their descendants. That's quite a clever idea. Perhaps the Watcher was jealous that the Broadusses had bought a home that the writer couldn't afford. But the focus remained on the Langfords. In cooperation with Westfield Police, the Broadusses sent a letter to the Langfords announcing plans to tear down the house, hoping to prompt a response. Nothing happened. Detective Lugo brought Michael Langford in for a second interview but got nowhere, and his sister Abby accused the police of harassing their family. Eventually, the Broadusses hired Lee Levitt, a lawyer, who met with several members of the Langford family as well as their attorney to show them the letters, along with photos explaining how their home was one of the few vantage points from which the easel could be seen. The meeting grew tense, Levitt told me, and the Langfords insisted Michael was innocent. One night, Derek had a dream in which he confronted Peggy, the eldest Langford, and demanded she build an 8-foot fence between the properties. Well done. Maria was having other kinds of dreams. One night she woke to an especially vivid one about a man who lived nearby. He was wearing these boots and carrying a pitchfork and calling to the kids, and I couldn't get them to come in time, Maria said. She thought almost anyone could be the watcher, which made daily life feel like navigating a labyrinth of threats. Oh. She probed the faces of shoppers at Trader Joe's, obviously they opened up again, to see if they looked strange, she and her kids, and spent hours Googling anyone who seemed suspicious. There were reasons to consider other suspects. For one thing, the police spoke to Michael before the second letter was sent, which would make sending two more especially reckless. The Broadusses say that Lugo told them they wouldn't receive any more letters after he spoke to Michael. Then there were the rest of the neighbourhood to consider. The private investigator found 2 child sex offenders within a few blocks. Bill Woodward, the Broadus's house painter, had also noticed something strange. The couple behind 657 Boulevard kept a pair of lawn chairs strangely close to the Broadus's property. One day I was looking out the window and I saw this older guy sitting in one of the chairs, Woodward told me. He wasn't facing his house, he was facing the Broadus's.
I don't find that odd at all.
No, by the end of 2014, the investigation had stalled. The watcher had left no digital trail, no fingerprints, and no way to place someone at the scene of a crime that could have been hatched from pretty much any mailbox in northern New Jersey. The letters could be read closely for possible clues or dismissed as the nonsensical ramblings of a sociopath. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack, said Scott Krause, who helped investigate the case for the Union County Prosecutor's Office. In December, the Westfield police told the Broadusses they had run out of options. Derek showed the letters to his priest, who agreed to bless the house.
Oh my God.
So, Carla, not long after the planning board decision, the Broadusses got some good news. A family with grown children and 2 big dogs had agreed to rent 657 Boulevard. The renter told the Star Ledger he wasn't worried about the watcher, though he had a clause in the lease to let him out in case of another letter. 2 weeks later, Derek went to 657 to deal with squirrels that had just taken up residence in the roof. The renter handed him an envelope that just arrived. Violent winds and bitter cold to the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife, Maria. Like, it just goes on and on and on.
Because actually, the stupid letters are kind of only a part of it. Do you know what I mean? I don't buy it. The letters are weird.
Apparently, however, DNA analysis of the letters said that a woman sent them, but we don't know who she ever is. We'll never find
I
out.
think it sounds like a woman, actually.
Really?
Weird.
Yeah,
why
I
do
would
you
say
say
that. I would say that.
I don't
for
know.
sure.
I
It
didn't
feels
pick
like
up on that
someone-
at all.
I feel like someone trying really hard. It just doesn't feel particularly sensical to me. Like from what I can see, the different things. Like, you know, one thing that's about, is it someone who likes old money and doesn't like new money? I don't know.
It does remind me of our place at Brunswick, where we are still getting complaints from the flats behind us.
Yeah.
For what?
The tree. So the tree's now 5 metres taller than the 3-storey units behind it, right? So the Brunswick Council, or the Moreland City Council, has just deemed it a significant tree. So they don't want to. They want it to be
Knock it down,
around.
yeah.
And so for years, we have had people telling us it should be cut down, blah, blah, blah. Now we've just had a new property manager behind us. And so old mate who has been complaining about it for years has piped up again and said it should be cut down. And it started off with, it drops limbs and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't drop any limbs. It's fucking healthy as. It could at some point, but it doesn't, is the important bit. So then it got down to, well, we'll end up getting possums and leaf litter everywhere. Like, well, welcome to everywhere in Australia where there are literally possums and leaf litter everywhere. Like, just because you're on the 3rd story of a block of flats doesn't mean you shouldn't have to go through that.
And then the cracking of their driveway and stuff like that, which is
caused by their trees that they've since removed. Anyway, while the Broadusses continued to be consumed by stress and fear, for the rest of Westfield, the story became little more than a creepy urban legend. A house to walk by on Halloween if you were brave enough. It sounds like that one in Antwerp in Victoria. No one who had lived in the house before the Woodses could recall anything. Sorry. I know. Because you get the Broadusses and then the Woodses.
And the Woodses, yeah.
No one who had lived in the house before the Woodses could recall anything unusual, and it was hard for people to imagine that their idyllic neighbourhood could be host to something so sinister. A woman who lives nearby told me that after the news broke, she and 10 or so of her neighbours had gathered in the street to puzzle out who might have sent the letters. Eventually, she said, they came to the consensus maybe the Broadusses had sent the letters to themselves.
Yeah.
To what end?
Oh, no, hang on. Glad you asked. The theory, so far as it went, was that the Broadusses had suffered buyer's remorse or realised they couldn't afford the home and concocted an elaborate scheme to get out of the sale. Or Derek, who was cooking up some kind of insurance fraud. Or they were angling for a movie deal.
Oh, that'll be it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, for Christ's
There's nothing like spending.
That's why you buy a house
Yeah.
and make a bullshit.
That's why you
story
spend
about it,
1.3 million on a house.
And then put people in to
So you
renovate
can
it
trash
before
the
you move into it.
neighbourhood. Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think so. That's very
Unlikely.
unlikely.
Correct.
The Broadusses received several offers to make a movie, but turned them down, which clearly shows they weren't angling for a movie deal or the offers weren't good enough. Lifetime eventually released a movie called The Watcher, despite a cease and desist letter from the Broadusses, arguing that the couple in its movie was biracial and the letters were signed The Raven. That's a shit argument.
Oh, my God.
Like, really? That's what you're going to argue? That actually makes me reconsider my thoughts on the previous bit. Is that what you would argue if a movie was made about you? That the couple was biracial?
No, they weren't arguing that because I read that the first time. They're saying that they didn't want it to be made, and they're saying even though the company changed those things in it, so it would suggest that it's not about them. Do you know what I mean? To make them feel better, it was a biracial couple, and it was signed the Raven. They were the two small changes that they made. Do you understand?
Oh, right. Sorry,
do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Lifetime
No,
are arguing that the couple in the movie were biracial, not the Broadusses.
Yes.
Oh,
so I had to reread that, yeah.
Oh, whew. That was
close.
Yeah.
Massive change,
Thank you. I was going down a wormhole then. Some locals found it noteworthy that over the course of a decade, the Broadusses had upgraded from a $315,000 house to a $770,000 house to a $1.3 million one.
How fucking
and refinanced their mortgages.
They're assholes. They must be the problem
Just
here.
on that, just to show how bad these people must be if that's what they're doing, I was talking to somebody who was telling me about someone we used to work with who put their house on the market for between 1 and 1.2 million, sold it for 1.8 million, bought an apartment off the plans in Melbourne for, I think, 1.4 million, and it's now worth something like, I don't know, 3 million or 5. I can't remember because the numbers are just ridiculous. But so in the course of a few years, he's gone from 1.2 million to 3 million or 5 million.
3 million.
Like in real estate, this is not unusual.
How is that an issue?
No, what I'm saying is it's not. It's
totally normal.
Big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yep.
All we hear about is how affluent this area is and how everybody wants to live there. It's like, of course, it's going to cost a certain amount of money, and equally, they'd sell it very quickly. Like, none of it would be like it's going to get stuck with it. If they want to just move it on, they would have just moved it on.
Correct.
Carla, if they just wanted to flip a house, they didn't have to make up a story about some psycho. In fact, making up a story about a psycho
has brought them more negative attention than
it would make it worse for them.
Yeah, exactly. It makes no sense. Yeah. So shut up, some locals.
Yeah, shut up, some locals. Some locals everywhere. Carla, I think to your point too, it sounds like somebody doesn't like new money. That's what it sounds
like. It's like a lot of them don't, to be honest. If it's an area that's a bit older money,
I mean, let's be honest, who does?
Well, they just don't like this couple,
especially next door with the older mum and the older children.
Oh, you're going back to the Langfords.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's just awful. The way that, let's say they had written the letters themselves, right? We don't know that. I don't think they did. But let's say they did. The way that people have come after them anyway, that speaks more about the community. Like, they're just awful.
Yeah.
I'm seeing here, it's like, a few weeks, like they've published the letters in the Westfield Leader.
Yeah.
And then anonymous neighbours were quoted asking why the Broadusses kept renovating a home they weren't moving into, or questioning whether they had really done that much renovating at all. What?
Yeah, we're just sending contractors around all the time to do nothing.
The leader even cast doubt on Maria's real commitment to her family's safety, citing as evidence the fact that she had a public Facebook page with a photo of her kids.
How does someone go from a $300,000 house to a $1.3 million house in 10 years? Anyone living in Australia in the last, 10 or so years would
Did it
have
without
seen this
trying.
happening. Yeah, like far out.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. It's called inflation.
Well, yeah, and the property market is off its tits, so that also helps.
Correct.
But I don't think you can judge someone for that. Oh, here we go. We need to quote Lord Fluffernutter, surely.
Fluffy nuts.
So, none of the theories made much logical sense. The Broadusses had answers to every question. How does someone go from a $300,000 house to a $1.3 million house in 10 years? Derek told me it's America. Also, it's Australia. I think that just happens. But they weren't speaking publicly, and the rumours persisted. One Boulevard resident wrote a letter to the editor arguing that an elaborate scheme is underway to defraud the Woods family for millions of dollars. Chambliss told me some Westfield cops even bought into the theory. There were even more skeptics online. I live in a neighbouring town. If these letters had been happening for a while, there is no doubt in my mind that it would have been made public way before this, Lord Fluffernutter said on Reddit.
On Reddit.
Yeah. But then Lord Fluffernutter goes on to say, this
It's a
screams scam.
Who the fuck is Lord Fluffernutter, and why are we even listening to this?
Well, no, I love that he, with a name like that,
or she.
well, Lord, not lady, so
Or they,
yeah.
yeah.
The Broadusses hadn't known how their neighbours would react to the news about the Watcher, but they had lived in the area for a decade, and Maria's family had been part of the community for much longer. So it was shocking to find themselves accused of being con artists. To Derek, it seemed that some in Westfield preferred the conspiracy theory to considering whether their town might be home to a menace. There's a natural tendency to say, I've lived here for 35 years, nothing's happened to me, Derek said.
Nothing will, yeah.
What happened to my family is an affront to their contention that they're safe, that there's no such thing as mental illness in the community. People don't want to believe this could happen in Westfield. There's a lot of words there, but actually that is a really
valid point.
There's a lot of words in this article, period. But to get to the point that this goes on paragraph after paragraph, there's one thing here which is bang on. It says they were worried about Westfield's good name. Some were primarily worried about arson or vandalism, but ultimately their concerns were they were worried about their property value and the stigma of the neighbourhood. And that is 100%. The crux. They need to contain it. They need it to deflect. They need it to be all someone else's problem in their imagination, or they're doing it all because actually everything's fine over here. We don't have anything bad happen here. There's no way that would be, it's all about value and money.
Yeah, and the problem isn't the person within our community who is making this happen. The problem is the people who this is happening to. We're kind of victim blaming in a real estate context.
We don't want to go from 19th richest, what was it?
Yeah, to 20th.
To 20th. We don't want to go from 30 safest to 31st.
We don't even want to be equal 19th. We want to be one. Kristen Kemp, a friend of the Broadusses, had tried to defend them on one Facebook forum, but people started attacking her. Somebody asked, how do we know it's not you writing the letters? Kemp told.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
God.
So after we discover that the township decides to turn on them, and it's all about property value and, people deciding that the Broadusses are, doing stuff and making stories, and they couldn't afford
for them to benefit themselves. Yeah.
So the Broadusses, desperate to get out of this property, decide to try and sell it on for, subdivide and sell it to a developer. They put it up in front of the town, and it gets rejected because the town.
It's on the boulevard, and the boulevard needs to maintain its,
It's part of that, but it's also I believe that someone says putting two houses there is going to stick out like an old client of mine in Texas told me. It's going to stick out like dog's balls. You can't subdivide it. You can't subdivide it. You can't do these things. The board, who they put it in front of, unanimously reject the proposal. And at this point in time, the poor old Broadusses are like, we literally don't know what to do with this. And remember, Maria grew up there, so she's like, these are my people, and I don't know what to do here. I came back, I chose to raise my kids here. You know what I've been through. You had the ability 2.5 years ago into a nightmare to make it better, and you've decided this house is more important than we are. That's really how it felt. Like that.
Because it's true.
The community says, no, we're not going to allow this. And so the Watcher, whomever this prick is, effectively, at the end of the day, wins. And to end this story, sitting at the Westfield train station, Derek handed me his phone so I could read the 4th letter. You were despised by the house, it read. The Watcher has won. And ain't that the truth?
Bloody
Yeah,
hell.
so either the Watchers won. I don't know. Like, I think, I mean, who even knows what the Watcher wanted? But I think that depending on where you sit, the community either won or lost through this whole process. And it kind of feels to me like, they're a divisive community who don't stick together for anything important. They are all about the money, the money, money. They don't need your money, money, money. It's awful. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be in a community like that. I don't. I'm not a fan of old money communities because I think they're very judgmental. And here's a very good example of it.
Honestly, if I'd bought that house and someone sent me a letter, I would just ignore them. I would have. I would have gone, oh, I've got a nasty neighbour and I'll deal with that. And I'll just ignore it. And I've had a very, very nasty neighbour, an explicit bully. And it wasn't until 4 years into my living there that I stood up to him that I realised you can stand up to this. I was nice. I was
It's
nice. I was,
Schmidy. It's different for us though. Like these people were talking about, young blood and these horrible
yeah,
things
I
that
didn't have
that to
children.
New
me,
family.
like we've all had that from a neighbour, but when,
Mm.
when I've got, if I was getting letters about young blood and I had children, I don't know, Carly, you would be
I would
best
have been
positioned to
freaked
comment
out.
on
Yeah.
this, but
I
I
would have
just
been
think
freaked out.
I'd be
I'd
scared of
certainly
anyone
invite
sent me a letter
a
and said, we've been
ghost.
watching you. That'd be enough.
it's funny also what, like, because I think councils, we had this experience with our place where if a neighbour complained, the burden of proof was on us to prove that
That
the
you were
the complaint
innocent.
wasn't just.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
And this,
God.
it's a little bit like this here, and that's why I'm kind of comfortable going. I think the community is lost in this case because
Correct.
they've actually all got on board with the whole. The problem is the people who are being victimized here, not the people who are, not the
Victimizing them.
person
Yeah.
who is doing it. And we could choose to go
Correct.
one way or the other. And it kind of makes your community more valuable if
And-
you stick up for people rather than just worrying about your
I
property
agree.
value.
Exactly. So
I
the
agree.
property values aren't ever going to go up if you're going to victimize these people for moving in and trying to do the best in their said
They were
property that they've
perfectly
bought.
ordinary. There was
It's
nothing.
That's absolutely terrible behaviour.
So sentencing.
Oh Christ Almighty!
I don't know who the Watcher is, right? None of us do, really. Whether
I
it's the
reckon it's
Langfords-
the same bloke who lived behind us in Brunswick for
Yep.
sure.
I think it's the man who lived next door to me in Frome.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that bit I'm okay with.
A shit
Yeah,
neighbour.
yeah. Maybe there's like a, how we spoke about Slender Man. Maybe there's like a slender neighbour who is
Oh,
just
yeah.
an asshole neighbour
'Cause it's
who
This is
just
one
lurks
neighbour.
around and
Neighbours.
complains through councils and
Yeah, it's
does
a broad
shitty
brush.
things.
For
Yeah, it's a
sure.
broad
Yeah.
brush. Yep.
So
Any
I
neighbour
think-
that's
Mm.
I
an
think
asshole.
slender neighbour needs to be sentenced.
Oh God! Now you made me think that I'm sentencing my neighbour from the UK.
No, I'm not
Give me a-
sentencing your neighbour from that.
I
will.
am.
I'm-
And
yeah,
give
but no,
me a
but so
moment
you do
because
that.
I'm going to make it ripe.
So I'm
Go
gonna
on.
sentence slender neighbour to homelessness because the privilege of living in a place where actually the people around you are not bad. You are just an absolute asshole who
Prick,
expects
yeah.
the rest of the whole universe to operate around you and revolve around you. I think is not okay. I think that the best communities you live in are where people accept everyone for their differences and where despite some of the frustrations, you can go, you know what? I know I'm going to lose 5 hours sleep tonight because the neighbours next door are having a party, but it's someone's special birthday.
Yeah.
Different if they're the meth heads who are doing it every night and you can't
Yeah, exactly.
live a normal
exactly.
life. But a normal life is actually to have a party at your house every now and then. So I think, sentence slender neighbour to homelessness where they actually, they can complain about their neighbours all the time, but their neighbours are either also homeless or are people walking past them giving them judgmental looks because they're living on the street. In this case, because they fucking deserve to be there, as opposed to a lot of homeless people who don't, but who are just finding themselves there due to circumstance. So I think the shame of someone who found themselves in their own little kingdom, judging everybody else to be on the street and copying it from everyone walking past, probably sits nicely with the watcher and also slender neighbour.
Swanee?
I mean, I can go down the route that Clark has taken. I mean, I think the local community has a lot to answer for, but going back to how it sort of originated and the idea of the letter, I suspect who I would like to be punishing is someone who saw fit to see a very opportune moment in someone's life. As we all know, like moving into any new place, let alone if you've purchased a new place, if you're renting or moving, it's always an exciting chapter. But I would imagine that given the caliber of neighborhood they were moving into, that for most people they would see that as a significant stepping stone. So they obviously knew exactly what they were doing in trying to pull them down and incorporate the children straight off the bat. A lot of it just seemed really so. I didn't find it to be terribly clever. I found that the first stuff felt really sort of like sinister, but a little bit clumsy. Nearly, it's like, oh right, in my checklist of things that I need to say, I need to incorporate the children. I mean, if they had a dog, it would have been the pet.
Yep.
This.
Yep.
We'll need to say that. Oh, I better know their names. For the next one, all of that kind of stuff that you'd think, oh God, they really know who we are. Well, in actual fact, knowing what we do about communities and the way people talk about one another, it probably wouldn't have been so hard to find that information if you really wanted to. Yep. So I honestly think it was someone in the neighbourhood or someone close to them just trying to really unsettle them or move them on. I don't think it was as sinister as it came across initially, but it doesn't really help us in terms of who I've got to punish. I'm a bit clueless. I'm sorry about that. What would you like to do, Schmidy? Who would you punish?
Well, I think when someone moves into a house, you don't have the right to ruin their lives, and you don't have the
No.
right to, frighten them. You just don't have this right, and you don't have the right, by the way, ass face in frame, to continue to try and ruin their lives, or act like you are more superior or more powerful or more important. Even after you cheat on your wife and have to have a divorce and she sells
Not this has
the
become
house
personal in any way, shape or form.
Point
No
is,
way.
when someone decides to be a dick, and by the way, let's not even get on to how they park their car by slamming it into yours and then saying your car rolled down the street onto theirs. Anyway,
sorry.
nothing to do with my
I didn't read that in this
experience.
article.
My personal experience of a bad neighbour.
My mistake.
So the watcher, in my opinion, gets to move into a new part of Tri-Bar Wine World. It's our estate. Let's call it our new housing estate.
Yeah.
Boulevard estate.
They get to move in. And they move in and they think that they've got the best of everything and everything's nice. And then someone else gets to move in next to them. But the thing is, there's someone next to them. There's someone on the other side of them moving at the same time. There's someone 45 degrees from them. There's someone 90 degrees from them. There's someone another. There are people moving in, and these people sell their houses really quickly, and they move out all the time. And the people who are the watcher in Tri-Bar Wine World, they never get to move. Their property never increases in value. They never get any value of where they are, and they can just be angry and angry. And by the way, you can't send letters. Everyone around you is protected from your acid nastiness, and you could just sit there and rot in your own nastiness.
Yep.
Because you're just a dick, and you should have pulled your head in when you had the chance. And Swanee just stepped back and was like, "Oh, Schmidy." It's just stop being a dick.
I'd also like to ban them from our community because we don't have those people in our community. If there's a
That's
where-
nice.
if there's a weird, we have people going down weird people's. We have weird people going down driveways, and so people literally take photos of them and post them on the local community. We have a very active community in keeping the community safe. We don't sit
Neighborhood
here
watch.
and blame everyone else. Well, it's not even that because we don't have neighborhood watch. We just have good people who care about our own community, and I think the Boulevards community had an opportunity to stand up for them and go,
I didn't. Yeah, I know.
let's make this place better, not worse. But it seems like they've all gone, let's make it worse, not better.
Mm.
I find that
just
odd.
And we're hoping property values just plummet.
great story, everyone. That was a great collective. We haven't done one of those that we shared before, but great
No,
collective
yeah.
story. Thank you very much for helping me with that, and miss you already.
Miss you
Absolutely.
more.
Ciao,
Ciao.
love you.
Bye. Well done.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.